I'm Kelly Carter, and this is Another Act. Emmy Award-winning Keke Palmer entered the entertainment industry in 2004 at the age of 9, and she hasn't taken a day off since. Her acting resume features roles from sitcoms like True Jackson VP and Scream Queens to movies like Aquila and the Bee and Hustlers. She's even done some work behind the camera. So Keke is always booked and busy for sure, and this summer is no different. You can catch her on the big screen in films like Disney's Lightyear and Jordan Peele's Nope, and on the small screen in the Disney Plus series, The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder.
Did you know that the very first assembly of photographs to create a motion picture was a 2-second clip of a black man on a horse? And that man is my great-great-grandfather.
Great.
There's another great-grandfather.
Keke Palmer, welcome to the show.
Hey, good to see you again.
No, it's nice to see you too, as always. You know, last time I saw you in person, you joked that I've known you your whole life, or just about all your life, but certainly your life in Hollywood. So I want to start there. How is it that you're picking projects now at this point in your career? What is it that you're looking for?
Wow, that's such a good question. I think I really picked them the same way that I always have, which is based off of how I enjoy them, how I, when I read the script for the first time, or when I, first identify, okay, this is what makes this character different.
Well, here's the thing. 2022 has been very reflective of exactly what you just described. Let's tick it off so far. We have The Proud Family, Louder and Prouder, Alice, Nope, Lightyear, so many diverse projects, and we're not even halfway through the year, really. So really, it's just a year of Keke Palmer, that's for sure. Tell me about that. Did you do something differently in 2021 to set up the year that you're experiencing right now?
You know what? I think it's just like good old time. You know what I mean? Time is what it was. I wish I could say, this is what I decided to do. And I think everything I did up until this point had to have led me here, because why else? This is literally my 20th year in the industry. This year marks my 20th year in the industry. So I really just feel like, God was writing the script, and I stayed diligent to my heart. I feel like I just stayed true to my passion, and it's just continued to evolve for me in this way, and I've loved it when people were watching and when people weren't.
Yeah, the great thing about your career, though, is that you've been consistently working. I haven't seen a slowdown at all. Was there any particular challenge with getting this industry to see you not as the adorable little girl that we met, I guess, 20 years ago, and now as the refined grown woman?
No, I don't know anybody that hasn't had a difficulty in this kind of thing, what you're talking about, because really what it is growing and evolving as a person. And I think the biggest and most obvious change of that is going from a kid to an adult. So in personal life, I think it's difficult, for your aunties and uncles to recognize, you are now a young woman. And I think it's the same thing in entertainment. And especially when you look at it from the standpoint of originating a brand. When you create a brand, that's your job, it's your career. It's like, okay, this is the brand, this is the concept, this is the identity of the brand. And then when you grow up, the brand kind of it has to dissolve. You cannot maintain a brand of being a child if you're no longer a child. And so it's really you just have to start over. And so I did anybody that switches careers or switches positions in their career or has to evolve what they're doing. And that was the journey that I did, right after I did True Jackson VP at 17, 18. From 17, 18 up until now, it's been me continuously working in this field, in this craft, and reintroducing myself essentially.
And one thing I think that you've done, at least with this year in particular, is voice acting with Lightyear. What was that preparation like for you?
Yeah, I love voice acting. And I started doing it when I was about 17, 16, 17. And I don't think I really knew how much I loved it at first. It was just kind of okay, I'm doing something with my voice and this is another version of acting, but I don't have to actually physically be there. And I think that's the most relaxing aspect about it, is that it's not about me being quote unquote presentable. It's just me using my gift, and I'm by myself in a room and I'm taking direction, which I love taking direction. I love working and collaborating in that way. And I think the bigger thing about it is over the years, realizing how to also protect that gift, realizing how sometimes people notice me just from my voice, which is insane to me. And so making sure that I can continue to do that and protecting it and knowing how to maintain that ability is like now something that I'm thinking about much more.
I love that you said that. You have a very unique voice. You talk about hair discrimination, PCOS, health and wellness, anxiety, depression. Why is that so important for you to do that at this point in your career, Keke?
I think a lot of it has to do with the fact of I think I'm human, and I think it's almost like I have to remind people of that, especially in the kind of field that I'm in, because celebrities or entertainers are often put on. First of all, we're all hodgepodge together, you know what I mean? And many of us don't even do the same things or have the same end goals. But because we are quote unquote popular, we all are kind of like grouped together. And that usually is very dehumanizing in a lot of ways. So I think for me, with my platform, definitely with social media, the balance is always, yes, maintaining my own personal boundaries, but also being real and reminding people that I'm a human being at the end of the day. This is just, don't put me on a pedestal. Don't, think that I'm living just a perfect life and perfect reality, because I don't think that helps anybody for you to see me that way. And so it's really just me just being a normal person, you know what I mean? And just trying to just exist like everyone and share my experiences when I think that they make sense.
That really speaks to your authenticity. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why people are so in love with you. You do this often. It goes viral a lot of time. Tell me about that. Where does your authenticity come from? And how do you define different facets of your life?
I think my authenticity comes from my family, my background, the way that I just grew up. And then also my defiance to be anything else. I wrote a book some years ago called I Don't Belong to You. And that was definitely my hey, I don't want to be what anybody else wants me to be, because it's too hard to try to be what anybody else wants me to be. And so it's my defiance and also my relief of, this is what I got for you. So if you cool with this, then you cool with me. And if you're not, then okay, but this is who I am and this is what I have to offer and this is what I'm about. And so I think I just own that, no matter how universal or niche it could come across. It's this is who I am and this is what I have to offer. And I think everybody at the end of the day maybe can relate to that to some degree, because all we can be is who we are. All we can bring to the table is what we bring to the table. And I think there's some sense of comfort in that, and knowing that, oh yeah, that's enough. You know what I mean? And she doing the same thing. And so I feel very much seen and again, humanized. I think memes, TikTok sounds, all that stuff is very humanizing. To know that people are able to take something that you said and apply it to any situation, especially if you've grown up in an industry that tells you that you are so different from everybody else, or wants you to believe you are so different from everybody else. It feels very good to me when that happens, because it's yes, at the end of the day, we all the same. Get into it,
No, I love that. Where were you in your career when you first started thinking about doing work behind the camera?
I think I've always kind of thought maybe, but I mean, for many years, I thought, oh, I can never write something. I don't know about directing, maybe producing, and then I guess as I've continued to grow, I started to realize that, oh, I've been doing some of these things already. Therefore, I became more comfortable owning the reality of doing them. And for instance, with my social media, specifically my Instagram, I use my Instagram as a bouncing board for so many ideas. And it, took many years for me to realize, oh, I'm producing my own content. This is what producing is. This is what writing is. This is what directing is. This is what development is. And I also credit, people like King Batch. I remember the first time that I hung out with King Batch at the Vine House, or, when we created Instagrams for the first time together, and watching his process and learning from other peers of mine that were creating their own content. It kind of started to make me realize that, okay, just as much as I'm able to do digitally, I can also do traditionally, and I can also blend the two. And that brought us to Turned Up with the Taylors, which I did with Facebook, that I won an Emmy for. So it just continued to grow over time, the realization that, hey, I could do this.
Yeah, absolutely. And you really create your own space. And I feel like that's something that you've probably done the entirety of your career. Talk to me about that, because that feels unique?
You know, I get that from my mom because let's be honest, the early half of my career, I was a kid. I mean, I couldn't have been a mad scientist or genius. This was a lot of her teaching and the way that she helped me to get to where I am today. And her main thought was research. My mom was on that computer going off with the research and figuring out, how do I help my daughter maintain a career in this industry and continue to do what she loves, especially as a young Black woman where you're not getting a million scripts like Akilah and the Bee, you know, so what's the tea? She was always trying to figure that out. And I mean, I think she ultimately realized that the people that continue to move forward, even if we think about men in this industry, or Will Smith from, you know, to Johnny Depp, Leonardo DiCaprio, Tom Cruise, if you really get into it, you'll see that they are always a part of the reason why the project got made. And so that's when she started to tell me, like, you have to find the people that you like. You know what I'm saying? You have to find the script, then, you know, find the person that you think is into the script, and then y'all have to come together. She taught me how to produce and taught me how to, you know, put myself in those spaces, and also made it clear to me that in order to make it in this industry, I'm not going to be able to just wait around. I'm going to have to figure out how to, you know, circumvent my own thing.
Yeah, and that leads me to, and you know I'm gonna ask, I heard that the way that the Nope offer came together was very unconventional for you as well. How did that happen where you find yourself working with Jordan Peele?
It happened crazy and not, you know, to be expected, because it was very much like, you know, my management said, hey, Jordan wants to speak to you about, you know, being in his next film. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you gotta be kidding me. Like, you know, not, you know, as an actor, sometimes we audition, sometimes we get called in. You know, you never know, you know, what the vibe is going to be, but obviously you're always ready for whatever it is. And with Jordan, for it to have come just straight to me like that, I was very just shook up, but also thankful and grateful. And I couldn't wait to get on the phone call with him and find out what the project was. And he was very like tight-lipped about it, but then eventually, obviously after the conversation, he quickly sent me the script and I read it, and just the whole process and seeing how he continues to refine and create such brilliant work has been a real pleasure to see up close and personal. He's a dear person to me.
You know, you're at the point right now where who's behind the camera is part of your selection process with projects. Are you really paying attention to filmmakers? Tell me a little bit more about that.
My way of picking projects has, like, again, a lot to do with what I want to do differently, what I haven't done before, how can I stretch myself, finding new material, interesting places to take myself and to imagine myself. And then, yes, sometimes it might be something that I'm not totally sure about, but then I meet the director or I meet the writer or I know the background story of it or the producers that are involved. All of those things, you know, are a part of why and how I choose to pick a project. And so it's really cool. As I continue to grow, I become even more and more and more interested in the behind the scenes. You know, I always try to tell people the most boring part of any film set are the actors. You know, no offense, because I'm an actor, you know, obviously, but there's so many other cool places to add and to make a project what it is. And so I get very excited to watch those processes. Watching Jordan and Hoyta on the set of Nope was just brilliant. You know, the relationship between a director and his DP or their DP is beautiful to see up close.
I do find that a lot of the roles we see you in feel empowering in a way that we're not always accustomed to. I find that you do pick a lot of roles that really speak to young Black women in a way that probably we haven't been spoken to before. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I am very thoughtful about, you know, not always is it, I'm going to do a role where it's a think piece and this is a thesis on what it means to be a Black woman. You know, not always is it going to be like that. And hopefully anytime that message is the main focal point, it's done effortlessly, right? It's meant to just thread in life and be something that you can just receive in a way that, you know, you don't have to be preached at, but it's just enjoyable. That's always the hope as well. But yeah, I think growing up in the Midwest, with the kind of parents that I had, my parents are very much so people of service and people of community. And so they raised me very early on to look to people like Muhammad Ali or Ruby Dee, Ozzie Davis, and people like that who didn't just perform, but they performed with the intent of knowing how it would push it was like their version of activism, where, you know, they use their art to also tell a personal story and narrative to their community in an uplifting way, and in unique ways. And so that's, I think, always stuck with me, that with any role that I chose, and it doesn't mean that every character is going to be a hero. It doesn't mean that every character is going to be a stereotype of perfection. And because I think that's something that's also a hard, a hard thing to carry as a Black person. Like, oh, every role's got to be a perfect, super tidied up person. No, but every character you should walk away from feeling like you gained something more than you lost. And I think I'm just very specific on making sure that, how did I feel after this? Do I feel better or do I feel worse? Do I feel like I learned something or do I feel this, And so I appreciate you saying that, because I am definitely thoughtful about the roles that I take, especially after I did Akeelah and the Bee, because I know, my mom always told me how much that, and I saw over time how much that role meant to people. And so I don't want to also mess up that legacy of what that is. I want people to also always see that whatever's that attached from that is, we're kind of continuing on the same wavelength. We're continuing that same thing.
Yeah, Keke, when did you realize that you really have become the voice of your generation?
Oh man, I think I realized that my voice maybe had a lot of power when I started doing Good Morning America in the third hour. I was like, okay, Miss Girl, how did we get here? Because this is crazy. I thought to myself, like, wow, okay, not just as, a Black person or a woman, but also at my age, and that was always kind of like, ageism is also a thing, right? And all in any industry is, you're too old or you're too young, you know what I mean? And so for me, doing daytime talk, it was really, again, it came from something that I was passionate about. I love to talk. I love to share. I always have an opinion, and I love to listen, and I love to discuss things. That's something that's innate and natural for me since I did my first talk show at 19 or 20, with just Keke. But I never imagined that it would go into a space that I felt people like me weren't necessarily like the audience. And that meant a lot. That was just like, I really saw, like, when you do your thing and when you're true to yourself, who knows what doors it opens and what rooms that you're able to walk through and stand in. I mean, I'm on Good Morning America with a fro on. Who would have thought it?
Absolutely. There's this running joke on Twitter that you stay with the job, and it's true, because sis, you are always working. What has been the key to your consistency?
I think the biggest key to my consistency is, like, I try to have no ego. A lot of people are like, oh, well, I used to be, or I did such and such, and I can't do that job. And I'm very much so like, are the people cool? Is the material good? They're gonna have lunch? Let's go. I'm not that girl where it's like, I was True Jackson and I, killing the bee. And so this means that I need it. No, I always keep it to what I'm passionate about, what I connect to. And, I don't really care about if people, it's funny. I did a TikTok joke on my page where I said, when someone comes up to me and says, why haven't I seen you on the big screen in a minute? Well, I've had 3 movies that went direct to DVD and you didn't see any of them. So don't ask me, it's pretty much the concept of how people don't realize it as an actor, like, the point is to get a job. It's to, it's to work. Whether it's always going to be a big blockbuster or not, it's not something you can constantly control. All you can do is hope for the best and do what it is you love. I'm sure it's the same as, as a journalist. I'm not always going to be working for Time magazine or whoever the magazine you could think of, but I'm writing and I love what I do. And so that's what I'm going to do. And that's how it's always been for me. I watched Nicolas Cage's last movie, The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. And everybody kept wanting him to be Face Off. And it's like, his whole thing is like, I just want to act. I've been booked and busy. I've been enjoying my life, creating and doing the kind of work that I enjoy. And he was having to deal with people responding to the fact that everything's not Face Off, or he's not being Nicolas Cage, the star. And I think I feel very much that way. And I always will about my career, is that whether people are into it or not, I'm gonna do it because I love it. And I think that's why I've always been booked.
Booked, blessed, and busy. I love to see it. Last question, what's next for you? Is there a project out there that you're working on? Or are you working on taking a nap, because you've been working?
We're about to put Keke Palmer in the bag, and y'all about to see Lauren Palmer get to work behind the scenes, okay? Get ready to just continue to see the evolution, We got many faces.
we're about to meet Lauren for real.
Okay, yes, we're to meet the brains behind the operation. Okay, we're in the back getting cooked up.
I love it. And you know I love you.
I always
I
love
love you
talking
too.
to you.
And continued success. Keep doing your thing because we all are watching and clearly paying attention.
And you too. I'll see you soon.